Hey there, this is part 2 of my Sonic DX video. If you haven't seen part 1 already, I highly suggest you go back and watch that, which is why I have linked it here. Anyways, last time we just finished off talking about Sonic, and now we're gonna keep on talking about the other characters. Speaking of the other characters though, let's take a quick look at them since we need to complete their stories too to play the final character. Let's go in order and start with the Fox. Tails' campaign is essentially an abridged version of Sonic's, but with a few twists. Instead of simply getting to the end of a stage, you need to get there before Sonic does. The stage has also been modified to make use of his special ability, flying. What's also kinda cool with these campaigns is that you see all the cutscenes you saw with Sonic, but from the character you're playing as its point of view. Meaning, some of them might be a little changed. It's almost as if the characters are telling their versions of the story, like with Tails for example, he's made to be braver and takes the initiative more often in a lot of the cutscenes.
Or else what, huh?
Or else I'll take it from you the hard way.
Just a nice little touch that makes the story progression feel less samey. You also see stuff that happened while Sonic was busy doing something else, like Tails carrying Amy off the egg carrier when it went down, or Tails being the one fighting Knuckles.
Oh no!
In general, if Tails was with you when you played as Sonic, you're gonna be playing those stages as Tails also. As such, there's only 5 levels for Tails to speed through. Some of them being shorter like Casinopolis, where you start in the sewer and just need to get to the end, or Ice Cap, where you start in the snowboard section. I dare say some of these stages are actually better with Tails than with Sonic, since you most of the time skip a lot of the bad parts. The last stage is a race against Eggman in Speed Highway, which is kinda cool. Thankfully, Tails manages to outspeed him and gets to the dud missile Eggman launched first. You actually get a unique final boss as Tails in the form of the Egg Walker, that takes place in the middle of the city next to the casino. You have to avoid his shockwaves and bash his legs in with a tail smack to win. It's nothing special, but at least they went through the trouble of actually making something. What I find interesting here is that, in contrast to Sonic, that pretty much stays the same throughout the whole game, some of the other characters actually go through a character arc. In Tails' case, he becomes a lot braver as a result of learning to handle things himself, instead of relying on Sonic all the time. It's nice. Next up is Knuckles. If I say hunting for emerald pieces, you probably already know what his stage objectives are going to be. With Knuckles, you go around in a self-contained area within the stage, often the biggest part of it, and look for pieces of the Master Emerald. They're hidden in the ground, around the level, and in enemies, but thankfully you have a radar that helps you find them, so it's not all that bad. I don't think these stages are as bad as other people make them out to be, but they're not exactly stages you'd expect to find in a Sonic game. What's noteworthy about Knuckles' campaign though, is the amount of backstory you get throughout it. Most of it is actually showcased here, so I might as well just go through it all while I'm at it. Our story begins with Chaos breaking the Master Emerald for some unknown reason, and without the Emerald's power, Angel Island can't stay afloat and crashes into the ocean below. We later learn that Chaos was actually imprisoned in the Master Emerald all along, by a young echidna named Tikal. She had to do this because as the tribe Tikal belonged to killed the Chows to steal the emeralds that Chaos had guarded for thousands of years, his heart grew dark with anger and spite, and he used the power of the Chaos Emerald to attain his perfect form and destroyed the world. That's the basic gist of it anyways. There's a lot of things wrong with Knuckles' story though, like how he encounters Eggman who tries to have him killed by sending Chaos 2 on him, and then trusting Eggman when he says Sonic is after the pieces of the emerald. I mean, the other characters here are pretty dumb, but Knuckles surely takes the cake. In the end, Knuckles kicks the butt of Chaos 6 and reassembles the Master Emerald, pondering his fate as the protector of Angel Island as it floats back up into the sky. And that's pretty much all I want to say about that. On to Amy! We meet Amy just as she's heading home from grocery shopping. But screw that, there's a bird that needs saving from an evil robot. Soon after, we meet Sonic, and soon after that, as we know, we head into Twinkle Park. Amy's stages are kinda special. She's not as fast as Sonic, not even as fast as Knuckles, but her stages focus a lot on speed since you're being chased by that green robot from earlier throughout them. In Twinkle Park, there's also a route that is exclusive to Amy. Here you're being chased by Zero, the robot, through a mirror hall that messes with your perspective. I really like this. Sadly, when we return to Station Square, we're captured anyways, and this leads us to the scene where Sonic sees Amy being taken towards the Mystic Ruins, and then being beamed up into the egg carrier. Here we see Amy coming face to face with Gamma for the first time in this awkwardly paced cutscene.
You want it now!
Does not compute.
You don't even know? I know you might hurt us both. Please, Mr. Robot. Won't you help us, please?
It would seem that Amy has no hope of getting out of there, until the bird flies out of her hands and stares straight into the programming of Gamma, which for some reason makes him open the cage. But we're not out of the woods yet. To actually get out, we need to clear Eggman's evil game of Whack-A-Mole. Something tells me he never intended anyone to beat this, because these things are popping up and disappearing way too fast. After clearing this, we get an upgrade for Amy. It's not just Sonic that gets them. The Warrior Feather makes us able to do the Spin Hammer attack, which is completely useless. If you later return to this room and get a score of 30,000 or more, you get a bigger hammer. Oh, I forgot to mention it, but Tails and Knuckles also get upgrades. Tails gets an item that makes him fly faster, and one that makes it so he can spam his tail attack. Knuckles gets the Digging Mitts, which lets him dig, and the Power Gloves, which lets him hit multiple enemies at once when charged. But back to 8. Next up is a stage that is exclusive to the last 3 characters, Hot Shelter. The stage is actually fun. At 2 separate places you have to place some blocks in the correct holes while avoiding Zero, and that can be kinda hectic. Amy's last level is Final Egg, but in a different area than Sonic would go through. I like this stage too. It has some original gimmick, where you call an elevator and have to hide from Zero while you wait for it to come down. It's on the shorter side, but better that than having it drag on. But even though you're done with the last stage, it's not quite over yet. When you go back to the egg carrier to find the bird's family, you encounter Zero again. But this time, you fight him to the death. Weirdly enough, this is the most satisfying boss battle in the entire game. It also has a double fake out in the lead up to it.
Yay, it's them! Oh no! Are you okay?
What you have to do here is knock the robot into the electric fence and then bonk him 3 times on his head and you're done. Not bad actually, though a bit short and easy. There's actually a bit of a character arc here too. After defeating Zero, Amy seems more confident in her own abilities, so that's nice. And that's the end for Amy. On to Big. We start out with a nice scenic shot of the night sky, as seen from the jungle in the Mystic Ruins. The camera then focuses on Big sleeping, but the frog on his belly, Froggy, notices something and goes to investigate. For some reason, probably to steal the emerald that's on Big's nightstand, Chaos is here, but Froggy to the rescue! This all happens off camera, but apparently the two had an epic face-off, ending with the frog eating Chaos's tail. That's what I like to imagine anyway. Anything to make this dredge of a storyline more entertaining, right? Oh god. Even his theme song just screams simple-minded. After seemingly getting possessed by Chaos's tail, Froggy eats the emerald and scurries away, which prompts Big to, well...
Come back here! What's wrong with you? Something's not right. We've always been friends. For years. Froggy! Wait up! Oh dear.
Oh, wow, that's that's real subtle, guys.
If you spell subtly like this.
Apparently, the character just likes to shout out some exposition now and then. Nothing wrong with that. So we follow the Poliwag to the big city. And to the game's credit, you actually get some nice responses from people if you talk to them. Oh, and yeah, there's Sonic and Tails just standing there. Big actually doesn't really have that much of a connection into the plot. We've previously seen him only once in any significant regard when we were about to fight Chaos 6 as Sonic. Other than that, he's pretty much absent. Anyways, we find our way to Twinkle Park via the sewers. What's with this game and sewers? Which is Big's first stage. The only objective here is to fish up Froggy using your fishing pole. Actually, that's the only objective in all the stages. Very not Sonic-like for sure, but it's not as bad as many people want it to be. Yeah, you don't actually go fast. In fact, Big's the slowest of the characters. The same can be said for Amy's stages, and they're pretty good. The fishing would have been pretty good too if not for the fact that the camera seems to hinder you every step of the way. It seems like it always positions itself the worst possible place where you cast your line, and it's way too close to the lure. So if Froggy is circling a big area, it's impossible to be sure you've hit your mark until he comes swimming past the hook. Okay, so we caught Froggy in Twinkle Park. That was a pretty short story, but...
Oh, now what am I gonna do?
Wait, you didn't get him? What? We literally had him on the hook. Ugh, fine. I guess they had to find some way to make this longer. After you finish stage 2, Ice Cap, a life ring will spawn near the exit to the cave. This is one of Big's many upgrades, but don't get excited yet. Most of them are lures for his fishing pole, and all of his upgrades are 100% optional. This includes the life belt and the power rod, which you get by lifting up his bed right after you start the game. Truly, there's no end to the originality of this character. Big is actually the second of 3 characters to visit the stage Hot Shelter. He's still only fishing though. In this stage, however, he finally catches the damn thing. But on the way out, we encounter Chaos, who swallows Froggy and absorbs his tail back into his body. And so begins the final boss fight for Big's story, Chaos 6. The only thing you do is throw your lure at the pulley, whatchamacallit, and pull him out, and that's pretty much it. Pretty uneventful, just like the rest of his missions. The only notable thing is that we actually see Chaos 4 turning into Chaos 6 here. Cue final cutscene. The egg carrier blows up, but unfortunately, Big the Cat is a mechanical mastermind, and somehow gets Tails' abandoned ship flying again, safely escaping with all his 9 lives intact. Like, is he just plain dumb? We even find out that he perfectly landed the plane without damaging it, even without the landing gears. Like, even Tails had trouble doing that. Well, allegedly. It's kinda hard to tell by the quality of the cutscene. As the credits roll, let me just say, this is by far the worst part of Sonic Adventure DX. Thankfully, we're not gonna end it with this sour of a note, since the next character, Gamma, is actually kinda fun to play as. We first meet Gamma, or E102 Gamma, when he's seemingly fresh from the assembly line, being activated by Eggman for the first time in his secret base. Our first mission is target practice, and ironically, the last character's first stage is the first character's last stage, Final Egg. You might have seen those Tails and Knuckles dolls popping up when we were going through with Sonic and wondering what they were for. The true purpose is as target practice for Eggman's creations. With Gamma, you have a laser sight that locks onto enemies, so it's more focused on defeating them rather than getting to the end quickly, but you also have a timer that's ticking down. Gamma's stage gimmick is that the more enemies you lock onto and defeat in a single attack, the more seconds is added to the timer. After you're done hunting down plushies, Eggman explains that he only wants the elite of the elite to serve on the egg carrier, so he pits you against your older brother, E101 Beta. Just like every other character-based fight, this is embarrassing, and Beta goes down without much effort at all. Even though he's defeated, Eggman grants Beta special permission to come along, but as spare parts, which Gamma later finds out means being hung up and stripped down by advanced machinery, essentially killing him. Even though it's just a machine, there seems to have been somewhat of an impact on him, because when he heads to Amy's cell, which is where he was heading originally, he just took a wrong turn, and he has that fateful encounter with the bird, something inside him snaps, and he realizes there might be some truth to Amy's words after all, and lets her go free. After this, we're told to go get the jet booster, which gives Gamma a glide, kinda like Knuckles. We then report to the back of the ship where Sonic is waiting to fight us. We know the rest. Sonic's about to deal the finishing blow, but Amy steps in, protecting us. While descending down into the Mystic Ruins, Gamma ponders Eggman's action and Amy's words before coming to the conclusion that Eggman is the enemy and that he has to save his friends, the rest of the E-Series robots. You can also go back to the egg carrier and get the laser blaster, which is basically a damage upgrade. Our first stop is Windy Valley, which is where E-103 is. It's at the end of the stage where you find out that by rescuing his friends, he didn't mean the robots themselves, but rather the animals that are trapped within. Eggman is using these animals as organic batteries to power his robots. This is why every time you destroy an enemy, a kind of animal pops out. So Gamma's whole gimmick with having to destroy as many enemies as possible to keep the timer from reaching 0 actually makes a lot of sense if you think about it. So you go through Red Mountain and free E-104. Then Hot Shelter where you free E-105. This is actually a pretty long stage with a really cool train section near the end. It's a shame they didn't do this more with the other characters, because even though a lot of them were visiting the same stages, this kind of thing makes them feel unique. E-105 is actually a pretty big boss fight, but it goes down even faster than the others. After taking down Zeta, we go back to the main area of the egg carrier where Gamma concludes that he's the only remaining unit. Just as he finishes that thought, however, Beta flies by, but he looks kinda different. We follow him and encounter our last boss fight as Gamma, an upgraded Beta, E-101 Beta Mark II. This is probably the highlight for boss fight so far. The boss starts out easy enough. You can't attack him head on as he quickly dodges your rockets. What you need to do is wait for him to attack and leave himself open, then fire. That's not all he does though. He also shoots rocket at you that you need to shoot down, which makes great use of Gamma's abilities. Near the end, he starts flying up into the side of the stage, shifting the camera behind him as he shoots down big laser blasts that expand upon hitting the ground. An all around very cool and fun boss fight, even though it's not that hard or especially challenging. What comes next is probably why Gamma is my favorite out of the 5 side characters. Beta falls to the ground, seemingly defeated, but as we get close to save the animal inside, he makes one last desperate attempt and manages to shoot us at point blank before he explodes. This leaves Gamma mortally wounded. As he struggles to carry himself away, the animal we rescued, a beige bird, flies over to check on us and then flies away. Suddenly, Gamma has a flashback of the beige bird, the blue bird we saw with Amy, and a pink one all huddled together. But it's a moment too late. Just as Gamma tries to turn around and confirm his suspicions, he ceases to function and falls to the ground, disappearing in a big explosion as we see the beta bird fly away. But if you pay attention, just before the screen fades to black, a pink bird joins up with a beige one. Stick around till the end of the credits though, and the end card reveals 2 birds happily flying off together side by side. So if you wondered where those 2 birds came from at the end of Amy's story, well, there's your answer. This would also explain the strange bond he felt with Beta from the start, as well as how he reacted when he came face to face with his, or her actually, now that I think about it, child in the holding cells. It's not a complex story by any means, but in contrast to everyone else in this game, Gamma's tale stands out as by far the most memorable one. When we next return to the character select screen, we see that there's an extra option added. a big question mark titled Super Sonic. I guess I forgot to add the mom or something? But before we deal with that, we're gonna take a small detour. Starting with the Chao Garden. I actually didn't play a lot of this, since I plan to cover it more in depth when I do Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, since that game is considered to have the better Chao Garden of the two. And, well, they're pretty similar in terms of mechanics. Here's the gist of it though. There are 3 different gardens you can unlock. The entrance to the first one is in Station Square, the second in Mystic Ruins, and the last in the Egg Carrier. You need to actually enter them to unlock them, but after that you can easily teleport between them. You start out with 1 egg, but you can find eggs in the hub worlds or purchase them and other rarities in the black market. This is where you'll be using all your collected rings. The Chao Garden is also where you get use out of the animals you save. There are several challenges, or races, you can enter your Chao in, and to make it grow you can expose it to animals and it will gain experience in a certain stat and take on some of that animal's characteristics. That's a short take. Let's move on to missions. In mission mode, you select a character and get dropped into the hub, where you find these mission cards, which gives you hints on what to do to complete them. They are also exclusive to the characters, so only Sonic can complete missions that he finds. One of the missions is to bring the statue outside the burger place to outside the hotel, and a mission as Tails has you cut all the weeds in Mystic Ruins. This is where Tails' second upgrade comes in handy, where you can just keep the action button pressed and he'll spin around for eternity. Oh, and they reset when you die, by the way. I learned that the hard way. The reward for beating all 130 missions is a playable Metal Sonic. He plays identical to Sonic and has the same stages and level goals. Pretty cool, but there's no story mode for him since you can only play him in trial mode. Speaking of trial mode, this is basically just a level select for replaying levels. I mean, you could always travel to them in the hub world, but this is much quicker. There's actually a reason for you to play them again too, and it's not just for fun, as you'll need to if you want to get all the medals and 100% the game. If you've paid attention throughout the video, whenever we clear a stage, it always says Level C completed. There are also B and A objectives in each stage for each character. For Sonic, Tails, Amy, and Gamma, the B level is getting to the end while holding 50 rings, and the A level is completing the level within the set time limit. In Tails' case, this just means you're racing a faster Sonic, and with Gamma, you need to have a set amount of seconds left on the clock. With Knuckles, the B mission has you finding all the emerald pieces without using hint balls, and the A mission sees you trying to find them within a set time, which is freaking bullshit since they seemingly spawn in random places every time. Last, but certainly not least, with Big, yeah, I'm not even touching these ones with a 10-foot pole. But that's okay, I was never planning on fully completing this game anyways. You don't really get anything for collecting all 130 emblems. Not anymore anyways. In earlier releases, you'd get a Sonic Game Gear game for every 20th emblem you'd collect. But they patched that out in the Steam, Xbox 360, and PS3 releases for some reason. Anyways, with that all out of the way, it's finally time for the last character to take the stage. Give it up for Super Sonic! Actually, it's just Sonic, but yellow. Okay, there's more than that. We start off by witnessing Angel Island fall back down in the ocean. Even though all the Chaos Emeralds and the pieces of the Master Emerald is back in place, somehow the island won't stay put in the sky, as explained by Knuckles. But not before we get this amazing clip.
Ooh, I hate that Sonic! He always seems to get in my way! But I bet he can't foil my master plan. Chaos!
Turns out Chaos has gone rogue and knocks Eggman unconscious, somehow dragging him right to Knuckles' doorstep, where he assaults him as well and steals the 6 Chaos Emeralds there. Sonic arrives just in time to find a badly hurt Red Echidna, and gives chase after witnessing via flashback the moment the Echidna tribe slaughters the Chao Chaos has been protecting, and thus uses the 7 emeralds to attain his perfect form, and begins destroying the world. Tikal then sacrifices herself and seals Chaos and her heart in the Master Emerald. She's the one that's been giving us tips and showing us the past throughout the game via those hint balls. The last emerald is a power supply for the Tornado 2, and Chaos manages to get his hands on it just as Sonic and Tails find the flame. After absorbing all 7 emeralds, Chaos enters his final, perfect form, and starts to wreak havoc on Station Square. This is a surprisingly gruesome scene in a Sonic game, with probably thousands and thousands of people drowning or being crushed by debris. Of course, they don't directly show this, but it is shown that there's a lot of people walking around in the streets, while Chaos completely annihilates several tall buildings. Shit just got real. Eggman flies in with the Egg Carrier 2 to get his revenge, but is swiftly taken care of. Such is the awesome power of perfect chaos. After Chaos transforms though, he discards the emerald after having drained them for all their power. Tikal urges Sonic to quickly seal him back into the Master Emerald, but Sonic points out that wouldn't help with the turmoil in his heart and would instead just keep him trapped forever in agony of his lost friend. It's at times like this that you feel the game wants to be really serious, but you just can't take it at face value because of the way it's presented. Just look at those mouth movements paired with the dialogue.
His heart will still remain in turmoil, and his anger just won't vanish. He'll just be trapped forever.
Meanwhile, the rest of the crew is gathering up emeralds, claiming that Chaos only absorbed the negative energy from them, and that Sonic could be able to draw from the real power by using, say it with me, friendship. I know I might have mentioned something earlier about a cutscene being the worst in the game. I take that back, and I'll let this one make its case itself for why.
Go, Sonic! Yeah, Sonic!
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 Negative forces aren't the only way to empower the Chaos Emeralds.
I don't think I'd stretch the truth when I say that this is the most cringiest cutscene in all of Sonic. Yes, I'm even counting the ones in Shadow the Hedgehog. And so, Sonic transforms into Super Sonic, and the battle for the fate of the world begins. Your objective in this fight is to build up enough speed to reach Chaos's brain. Sonic has 3 stages of speed in this form. One is the normal yellow glow around his body. Then, as he gains speed and the air around him starts to get warm, just like it would when something enters the atmosphere of Earth, it flares up a bit, and then at max speed it turns into a very distinct blue. Gaining speed in this fight is not hard. Like really, all you have to do is jump a bunch since you gain more momentum while in the air. This is actually true for all characters, not just Super Sonic. It's actually pretty helpful when playing as Amy. What this also means is that you can reach top speed by just holding the control stick forward and then hit one single booster. The boosters are littered around the stage, which is made to resemble a very broken and flooded speed highway. In addition to cars and such that's there to slow you down, Chaos has a few attacks of his own. Most notably a projectile attack that he uses when you're far away, which spawns multiple purple blobs of water that home in on you, and the water ray he used against the Egg Carrier 2 for when you get close. It only takes 6 hits to knock him out of his perfect form, and after returning to little old Chaos, it seems that the positive energy of Super Sonic negated the negative energy in Chaos's heart, returning him to normal after witnessing the ancestors of the Chow he were protecting so long ago.
Chaos has changed again, this time for the better.
Yeah! Super Sonic must have neutralized it, so it's nice again.
These are the Chow you were protecting. They stayed alive for generations and now live peacefully with humans. The fighting's over, harmony's restored, and life goes on. Thank you so much.
Chaos and Tikal then slowly float towards the sky and disappeared, and is, judging by the end card, going back to protect the Chow and the Master Emerald for the rest of eternity.
starts well that ends well, right? Sonic!
And that's it for Sonic Adventure DX. Going in, based on a lot of criticism on the internet, I was actually expecting this to be a much worse game than what I experienced. It's true, sometimes the physics are a mess, the voice acting is spotty and tolerable at best, and the cutscenes, well... But underneath all that lies the foundation of a great 3D Sonic game. The level design is good, it's possible to run through these levels at an extremely fast pace, none of them lasting more than around 4 to 5 minutes if you're good, even though the collision detection and how Sonic controls at high speeds could have been refined a bit more. The music is great! Moving away from the electronica of the earlier 2D games into more high-energy rock really suits the franchise well. Actually, I can't think of a single 3D Sonic game with an overall bad soundtrack from the top of my head. Revisiting the stages and completing the optional objectives can be really fun. It's just a shame that it doesn't really amount to anything more than bragging rights in these newer versions. The side stories of Tails and the rest, while recycling a lot of Sonic's campaign, never really overstays their welcome. Though there are a couple of reoccurring boss fights that didn't necessarily have to be there. Say what you will about Big the Cat, but at least they tried something new. It's just a shame that it doesn't feel like it belongs in a Sonic game at all. And I think that if they'd fixed the camera and pacing issues, he wouldn't have been looked at like the Scourge. All in all, I'd say that Sonic Adventure DX is, to me, a good game, but a somewhat disappointing Sonic game. I understand that this being the first 3D Sonic game and all must have felt really revolutionary back then, but I still don't think it deserves the glowing critiques it got, since I feel that certain parts of the game kinda subtract from the overall experience, rather than add to it. Certain aspects of the game, like the camera, the cutscenes, and the much harped about collision detection, are telling signs that the game was in development for only 10 months. Do I think that you should play it though? Absolutely. Just don't bother with Knuckles and Big unless you plan to fight the last boss. That's a couple of hours of your life that you'll never get back. That was a big one. Playing this game has gotten me kinda psyched for playing Sonic Adventure 2 Battle, but that won't happen for a while, as I'm sure I'll have a lot to say about that game also, and I need some time to recuperate. No, instead, next time, we'll take a look at the first game of another famous mascot in the platformer genre that also made the jump from 2D to 3D back in the day. See you then.